Once upon a time there was a small virtue named acceptance. Every day he will secretly be looking for ways to bring back two of his siblings that were destroyed during an attack to the heart by powerful dark forces such as despair, disillusion, disappointment, and heartbreaks. He went to every corner of the heart, of the ego, and to logic's quarters, looking for a clue on how to bring faith and hope back. Until one day he asked patience and understanding if they can help on his quest. The three of them went to the memory bank to access more information, and they came across a scroll with a diagram that listed all the virtues necessary to fulfill a life. They recognized all of the other virtues, except there was a space for a virtue they never met. They wonder how was that possible. They couldn't ask the cognitives or logic because they were working in secret. Because of that, patience and understanding suggested that they go to the ego. He hates logic and despised the cognitives, so he would gladly help them just out of spite. "So I finally meet the famous acceptance," said the ego. "You three are quite the team nowadays, everyone is talking about you. Now, to what do I owe this pleasant surprise?" Acceptance showed the ego the scroll. The ego looked worried for 1 second and asked them, where did they find this scroll? They explained what acceptance was trying to do. The ego gave acceptance a disapproval look and said, "Acceptance, I suggest that you accept the things you cannot change. The virtue on the scroll is wisdom." The three of them looked confused. The ego kept explaining, "In the beginning, the cognitives, logic and wisdom, worked together to ensure peace and harmony. But soon they started to disagree on many things, and they each wanted to be in charge. So eventually they started to work independently. Wisdom eventually stopped contributing. Logic and the cognitives didn't even notice he was gone until the attacks to the heart started happening. Some say that wisdom is gone forever, just like faith and hope. He truly abandoned us. If it weren't for you, acceptance, we wouldn't have survived the last attack. I didn't know you well, or if you ever were going to be of any use." After a long conversation about himself, the three virtues thanked the ego and said goodbye. On their way out, the ego told acceptance in a low voice, "Take a hint." Acceptance had no idea what he meant by that, but didn't give it much importance. The next day, they returned to the memory bank. Now that they have a name, they looked for more information on wisdom. They found nothing in the memory, but a small hint saw their frustration and helped them by showing them where to look. They looked into the useless knowledge pile. They found a description. Wisdom is the capacity to judging rightly when living a virtuous life. Wisdom is the sum of all virtues. The ego would have to, if but the document was corrupted after that. So, how can we find wisdom without faith and hope? Acceptance was wondering. So we need faith and we need hope to find wisdom. Repeated patience and understanding. "No, you do not," said a commanding voice behind them. They froze a little when they turned around and saw that logic looking at them intensely. He was not angry, but logic never smiled anyways. "Wisdom still exists. I can assure you this. Why are you three looking for wisdom now?" Acceptance explained. "With his wisdom, he can tell us how to bring faith and hope back." Logic came really close to acceptance and said, "Acceptance, I suggest that you accept the things you cannot change. Wisdom abandoned us. Because of him we lost faith and we lost hope. He deserves to be where he is at." Acceptance realized that logic knew where wisdom is. "Of course I know. He is in unconscious. I don't know how he ended up in there. But he should have known better. Once in the unconscious, there is no way out. The heart is at peace. We don't need faith or hope or wisdom. Now go back to your post." On the way out, acceptance was trying to remember what the ego said. "Take a hint?" "Yes. Take a hint." The memory bank was full of them floating around. Acceptance grabbed the one that helped them earlier and brought it with him to their posts. Once in their post, acceptance showed the hint to patience and understanding. "What now?" they asked. He released the hint in the air and it flew towards the exit, calling them to follow. They arrived at logic's quarters. The hint went in through a window, and they also follow. The second they were inside, bars on the window trapped them inside. Even with their full potential, they couldn't escape. You wanted to meet wisdom so bad? Asked the ego. Well, you are about to meet him. Say hi for me. Before they knew it, a portal opened at their feet, and they fell through it. They landed. At the bottom and next to them there was another virtue. Hello patience, hello understanding. You must be acceptance. Who are you? They asked at the same time. I'm wisdom. Pleasure to meet you. So where is faith? And where is hope? I thought they'd be coming with you. They were destroyed, sir. By powerful dark emotions. Wisdom stayed quiet. Thinking. Suddenly the alarm was activated, meaning the heart was under attack. Wisdom saw, how do we get out of here? We need to go to assist the cognitives. Wisdom, look at them. There is no way out of the unconscious. Once here, you are here forever. Can you tell us how to bring back hope and faith? I'm afraid not. They are not here in the unconscious. If they are truly gone, nothing we can do. So you greeted us as if you knew we were coming. Yes, but I assumed faith and hope were going to arrive with you. Acceptance pressed on more. Wisdom, sir, how can we stop the ego now? Wisdom pointed in the direction of a small sphere and said, the only one that can stop the ego is the Super E. He is the moral compass of this life. But he can only be awakened by me. I can only do that with all the virtues. Not with faith and hope gone. Acceptance tried to ask more questions, but wisdom interrupted him. I suggest that you accept the things you cannot change. Acceptance. After all, accepting is who you are. Acceptance thought for a moment, but how can I accept something to be definitive? If I accept them gone, they will be gone. But looking around, he realized that everything he tried was in vain. Because apparently faith and hope are truly gone. When that thought happened, acceptance started to become at the depression. Wisdom was looking sick, and he expelled 2 newborn virtues from his stomach. Thank you, acceptance. You did it. Only when you accept, for yourself and not for others, we can count on you. Now don't worry, I will not let you become a depression. Introducing to you faith and hope, they are newborn virtues, I will explain later, but nevertheless now I can awake the moral compass. Are you guys ready? Patience, understanding, acceptance, faith and hope transformed their energies and became one with wisdom. Meanwhile, the other virtues were in the middle of fighting the ego, who came to take over all matters of the heart. Why are you doing this? Asked temperance to the ego. Don't you read? It says on the scrolls, there is no room for the ego in a virtus life. I will send each one of you to the unconscious and take over this life. Temperance explained to the ego, disrupting the balance is not going to help you, only destroy you is the logical outcome. You sound like logic, screamed the ego, about to strike him with the darkness. But he was shielded by a powerful force. It was wisdom. All the virtues now part of him. He summoned the Super E. The ego was speechless to see such imposing figure standing in front of him. They were 2 sides of one coin. One with ethics and morals, to keep the other under control. And so, the Super E took the ego to the unconscious. The ego resisted, but was not strong enough. Both of them and the darkness disappeared through a portal. When everything was quiet, logic and the cognitives were looking at wisdom without saying a word. Until one of the cognitives said, now you show up? Wisdom answered, sorry guys, but acceptance took his time in accepting. Acceptance realized that logic, the cognitives, and wisdom were aware that the ego was behind the heart attacks. Wisdom volunteered to go to the unconscious, knowing the risks. They were counting on acceptance to accept the things he cannot change. And he finally did. Acceptance volunteered to be the first mentor of faith and hope. Apprehensively, wisdom agreed. Eventually, with time, the heart and the mind were at peace. They knew this would never be a virtuous life, for that the ego has to be destroyed completely, but they felt the ego was as much as part of this life as they all were. As a precaution, they made sure to keep the moral compass always active. The ego learned eventually that sometimes he too must step aside. For the heart to be able to get past things, for many years, everything was good. But one day, alarming news came to the cognitives. They consulted wisdom and logic. But there was no experiences to deal with this new threat. One of the sealed memories in the unconscious was broken. Something escaped from the unconscious. Something powerful enough to get past the moral compass and resurface. What was it? They asked the moral compass and the ego. It was a childhood trauma, sir. We were not prepared for such brute force. You two need to come with us to the conscious mind now, said logic. Only together we stand a chance. A chance for what? Said the childhood trauma, standing outside the main chamber of the heart, surrounded by total darkness.